Alabama survives another crazy Iron Bowl, and it might not have been the craziest outcome of the day.
You are Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin, your daily podcast on all things college football. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Locked On College Football. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin, and thank you all so much for making this your first listen or your first view every day. It is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one sports podcast network out there. Oklahoma survived. They should be in the playoff. Texas should not be in the college football playoff, and you will not believe, if you don't already know, what's going to happen in the ACC Championship Game, all on today's show. Starting with the Iron Bowl, Ty Simpson threw for 122 yards in this game. Alabama was held on the road to under 300 total yards of offense. 280 to be exact. If you had told me that before the game, yeah, this is the Iron Bowl. Nothing matters. Who cares about stats? So Alabama survives 27-20. And let's start with the gutsiest decision I have seen all year. I can't think of one that's a bigger gamble than what Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb dialed up. On the road, tied at 20, with less than 4 minutes to go in the game. I think there was less than 2 minutes to go in the game. Fourth down, and not one, but two. Auburn knows you have to throw because there's no semblance of a running game for this Alabama offense with any measure of consistency. They did go for 158 and over 4 yards a carry, but in the fourth quarter, it was tough sledding. You know that Alabama's throwing the ball. You have got a chip shot field goal. I mean, Alabama's offense, just to be clear, they scored with 3:50 to go in the fourth quarter. Their offense was not very good in this game. Their special teams this year have been an adventure, to say the least. There have been, Oklahoma, some really bad sequences. And sure, it would have been kicking from the hash mark, but it's not like we're playing EA College Football 26, and that's just an impossible thing to do. Connor Talty had hit both of his field goals. He drilled one from 45 and all three extra points. And Kalen DeBoer on the road rolls the dice and comes up with a snake eyes. And I still can't believe the call. I don't even agree with it, even though it worked. Auburn's offense in no way was consistent. And sure, you're going for not a kill shot. You're going for a better one possession lead. You're not going for, well, you're up by 3, so instead of going up 6, you want to go up 10. No, this was a tie game. Alabama jumped out to a 17-0 lead. Auburn storms all the way back and ties the game. Whatever happens with the Tigers going forward, Malcolm Simmons must be protected at all costs for the Tigers program. Man, is that guy a legitimate weapon. But they ride him and Ashton Daniels doing whatever it took to win this game. He had 23 carries for 108 yards. He threw for 259, a touchdown, and an interception. He looked like Haynes King out there. He was just gaming. He was just balling. And he was marching Auburn down the field to try and tie the game. And then Cam Coleman lost the football. Auburn fans have been through quite the ordeal for the last few years. They have had some catastrophically bad officiating breaks go against them this year and last year, especially this season. They have had continuous stretches of underperformance, and they were almost there. And they again, just Auburn being Auburn. Man, they just found a way to lose the game. Alabama winning this game with defense is a good sign if you're a Crimson Tide fan, because the offense wasn't any good. That's what you've written all year. Alabama's defense very quietly is starting to become a legitimate unit. But man, I cannot believe that Kalen DeBoer decided to go for it. I mean, whoa. That drive for Alabama, that they went down 15 plays, 75 yards, 7:53 wound off the game clock at Jordan-Hare. Auburn ends the season at 5-7, 1-7 in the SEC. And I don't think you can hire DJ Durkin. I know the place was humming. It looked good. It's felt good at moments. He had to at least win one of those football games. I'd be highly interested if I were Auburn in retaining him as a defensive coordinator, because I think he's really good at that. And I think Auburn fans know he's really good at that. You should want DJ Durkin to be your defensive coordinator. The reports are, by the way, that Florida's targeting John Sumrall, making him their number one priority. I don't know where Auburn is turning after that. Maybe DJ Durkin is all they're going to be left with. But I don't know why, even though it hasn't been all bad, I don't think DJ Durkin's done enough. You cannot give him that job when he lost the two big games. And yeah, they were close. They were competitive. Team was fighting. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it unless literally no one is available. If Kenny Dillingham has turned you down, and Rhett Lashley, I'll talk about him later in this show. Rhett Lashley was extended at SMU, and Drinkowitz was extended at Missouri. Look, maybe there are no options on the board. There have got to be some options on the board. I don't think you can go with Durkin. Maybe they will. Maybe they will. Would that be the most Auburn thing ever? Kind of. Let's pivot to Alabama. They are 10-2. Alabama will play in the SEC Championship Game against Georgia in a rematch. Bama won in Athens earlier this year, ended the Bulldogs' home winning streak. Now, I don't envy the college football playoff committee. I'm going to be here to react and perhaps criticize whatever they wind up deciding after conference championship game next week. I do not want to see a 10-3 Alabama in the college football playoff. I don't want that. I think that I will be less offended by them getting in than I do Texas. That's where I'm at right now. I think Alabama's safely in. It's hard to see an SEC championship game participant getting left out. If ever there were a case, Alabama losing to Georgia would be that case. And you'd look back, just like Texas should look back at that horrific Florida loss, and they would look back at the Florida State loss and go, yeah, we screwed up in that spot and should have just won the game, or should have beaten Oklahoma at home, who we saw, thanks to LSU's efforts, is pretty human and very beatable, and they made too many mistakes. I don't think that's going to happen. That's just what I would like to have happen. I would like to watch the SEC Championship Game knowing that Alabama losing knocks them out of the playoff. I think that would be great. I don't anticipate that's where we're at. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Hit me up on Twitter at @LockedOn_CFB. Or at @McLaughlinCFB. I run both of those accounts. That's the way the world works. Speaking of Oklahoma, they should be in the college football playoff. Texas, nope. First, this episode brought to you by our friends at Omaha Steaks. The holidays always feel a little easier when you already know the perfect gift. And Omaha Steaks makes it almost too simple. Whether you're treating yourself this season or sending something memorable to family and friends, Omaha Steaks delivers handcrafted perfection right to their door. And this week is the best time to jump in because their cyber sale is here and the deals are huge. And the quality of meat that you're going to get from Omaha Steaks, just what you're looking for. Incredibly tender steaks, rich flavor, and meals that make hosting or weeknight cooking easier. Omaha Steaks has got it all. You definitely want to check them out this holiday season. Save big on unforgettable gifts with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide and an extra 20% off select favorites during their cyber sale. And for an additional $35 off, use the promo code COLLEGE at checkout. That's omahasteaks.com, promo code COLLEGE. Terms apply. See site for details. Check them out at omahasteaks.com. Oklahoma survives. It was getting a little bit tense in Norman. A lot of bit tense. I said going into this game that if Oklahoma won, I want to see them in the playoff. If they lost, I didn't want to see them in the playoff. Because if they had lost, they would have had the same record as Texas, who I'll talk about in just a moment. And Texas has the head-to-head, and LSU, like Texas, would have added a bad loss to a lineup of really good wins. But they found a way. And John Mateer, I do not care in the slightest that John Mateer went for 318 yards and 2 touchdowns in this game. This Oklahoma offense is straight up not good. The good news is their defense is great, and their special teams are really good. And that's how they win games. That's totally fine. You can call them the BYU of the SEC. That's kind of what they are. They don't blow that many people out. BYU does that more often in the Big 12. Their offense isn't that good, but their defense is really great. They play sound fundamental football. It's all good. So Oklahoma beats LSU, mostly because the Tigers decided to blow some coverages on the back end of the defense. I mean, the go-ahead touchdown, yikes. That was a yikes for LSU fans who are still awaiting to hear whether Lane Kiffin will be their next head coach. This was an awesome football game. On my fan mood assessment, I forgot to do this earlier, by the way. I'm going to put Auburn at the very bottom, the worst of vibes, because they had a chance to go to a bowl game, maybe hire DJ Durkin with some momentum and beat Alabama and knock them out of the play, and they didn't do that. And Alabama, yeah, you go on the road, win at Jordan-Hare, that's the highest of vibes. A lot of polarizing teams in the scale during rivalry week. Oklahoma, the highest. LSU, no vibes. Who cares? Oklahoma, they haven't hired Lane Kiffin yet. Then the vibes will be really high in Baton Rouge. Oklahoma wins the game. They found a way. They deserve credit for that. They're 10-2. Their schedule is tough. They won games I didn't think they would. I thought they'd go over their win total of 6.5. They did. But they were 2 games better than I predicted. I had them 8-4 before the season. They wind up at 10-2. Good for Oklahoma. They should be in the college football playoff. Texas should not. Texas absolutely should not. I have heard and seen and read all these arguments about why Texas should be in the playoff and are you saying that you shouldn't schedule this? Hold on. Back up. The folks that want to throw out, well, there's just no reason to schedule a quality non-conference opponent. Yeah, there is. Because if you don't think that a 10-2 Texas with 0 Power 4 non-conference opponents that played 8 league games wouldn't be ripped on this very show and punished accordingly, in my view, you are very wrong. You are incredibly mistaken, because of course that would be a conversation. It's interesting. The same sort of crowd that wanted last year to rip on Indiana. They haven't played anyone. SMU. They haven't played anyone. Their schedule is weak. Is actively right now probably telling you that Texas should be into the playoff because they could have made their schedule a heck of a lot weaker. Yeah, I don't buy that for a single moment. Texas is in the same position as Ole Miss was a year ago. You can whine and complain and say it's shout out to BYU football Twitter, by the way, for mocking Steve Sarkisian. That was a good one. You can say it's a disservice, and I don't fault Sark for pumping up his team. Of course he should. He's a team's head coach. He should fight for his guys and his program and state why he thinks they should be in the playoff. That's what he's supposed to do. What we're supposed to do is figure out whether he is correct or whether he is BSing on behalf of his own program. In this instance, it is the latter. Because his point was, well, last year, the team that played for the national championship lost to Northern Illinois. Yes, they did. You know what they didn't do? Lose another football game. And yes, Texas has some really good wins. Are we going to question Texas A&M's resume at any point in time? Anybody? Anybody? Bueller? No? Okay, we're not going to do that. That's fine. I think Texas A&M is a really good team. Cursed to not make the SEC Championship. Worst of vibes, by the way, in College Station. Oh, man, that is a clear and obvious. I don't think you could have a more perfect scenario to make the playoff, but on my fan mood assessment, be in the worst of vibes camp. Texas A&M's right there. Lost to their rival, can't make the SEC Championship game, but they'll probably host a playoff game, so at least there's that, Aggie fans. So Texas not beating Florida is completely absurd, because let's draw out the hypothetical, and the SEC loves hypotheticals. Man, they are all about them. Have been for quite a while. If the Longhorns didn't schedule Ohio State, which, by the way, if they'd won that game, which they could have, then this is a completely different conversation. Or if they'd beaten Georgia, who's a really good team, but they smacked them around. Anyway, if Texas had scheduled a different Power 4 school, because I hope we can all agree that playing 8 conference games and 4 cupcakes is, not okay. Just like we can all agree that Indiana having 9 conference games and 3 cupcakes is also not okay. If you come across someone who's opining about how Texas should be in, it's not fair and they scheduled this and they aren't rewarded, make sure they don't have any tweets ripping on Indiana for playing 9 conference games and 3 cupcakes there. Because if they do, well, then you should want Texas to make that a Power 4 game. Who's to say Texas wins that game? You can't guarantee that. If they could lose to Florida, they could lose to anybody. Florida stinks. I don't care if they beat Florida State. Florida stinks. And so I do not for one second want Texas into the college football playoff. I'm fine with them being in the discussion because of their wins. And if there had been mass chaos, then yeah, I might have gotten on board with it. At 9-3, I'd put them ahead of Miami. I'd put them ahead of a 9-3 Notre Dame. Guess what? The results on the field need to matter. And I do not care what Texas could have done. Are you saying that they should do this? Teams shouldn't control their schedule. That's the answer to the question. Because if your solution, or if your statement is, well, Texas just needs to not cancel. No one should ever play a good non-conference game. You're removing the incentive. I'm not completely disagreeing with you. I'm saying, and this is going to apply to the Notre Dame-Miami conversation, if the Irish get in and the Hurricanes, who dominated a ranked team on the road, by the way, in Pitt, like I thought they would today, if Miami gets left out, the same conversation will pop up. Well, where's the incentive? And then we'll get back to a point I've been making for a long time. Teams controlling their own college football schedule is completely and utterly absurd. It's completely absurd. You should not feel bad for Texas. You should feel worse for Vanderbilt. They just had the best season in the history of their program. They won 10 games for the first time ever. They've never done that before. And the Commodores are not likely to make the playoff. Part of the reason could be that Texas had them down big. They staged a late comeback, but we all watched the game and realized, yeah, okay, Texas is better than Vanderbilt. Well, Texas doesn't have the same record as Vanderbilt. The Longhorns are 9-3. The Commodores are 10-2. And look, I am here for 10-2 teams getting left out of the playoff because my everydayers out there know what my priority is. Maintain as much regular season, week-to-week urgency as you possibly can. My biggest concern with all of this, and Texas, and it being Texas and not somebody else, you're right, by the way, Vanderbilt could get left out of the playoff. Is there going to be as much national attention and outrage? Probably not. Just a guess. Just a guess. My concern is where we're going to go as a sport is Texas getting left out will be a rationalization for canceling quality non-conference games and expanding the playoff, neither of which are good for the sport. But that's probably where it's going. Because as I've said for a while, I'll finish with this. I do not believe the hardcore expansionists out there who are drunk off of the money that the playoff has gotten them, or at least the people that benefit from it. I don't think they'll stop until it's 24 teams. And then we can debate whether a 4-loss Tennessee should get into the playoff, or a 4-loss Iowa, or maybe a 5-loss SEC team one day. Because someone will look at the FCS playoffs, which are about to start in earnest and had some craziness today. Youngstown State blew a 35-7 lead against Yale. Just saying. They're going to look at that, and they're going to say, well, they've got 24 down there. Why shouldn't we have 24 up here? Which is the dumbest bumper sticker logic you can come up with. But that's kind of the world it feels like we live in. So I don't want to see Texas in the playoff. I want to see Oklahoma in the playoff. I don't want to see Notre Dame in the playoff. Unless Miami's also in the playoff. I don't think that really works. I don't want to see BYU get left out of the playoff. I'm going to have more on that on tomorrow's show. The madness in the ACC, man. I called this the Chaos Conference many weeks ago. And the Chaos Conference has arrived in full force. First, this episode brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. As I record this show, I don't know how my best bets are going to fare. Not off to a good start at 1-3, but hey, 500 is possible. I'm choosing instead to focus on my over-under bets from before the season with my record predictions. Those are hitting at about a 60% clip, so I'm not completely clueless, but picking games, boy, it can be tough. You think you can do better than me, or you just want to fade the picks, because that's a good idea. FanDuel's the place to do it. Right now, FanDuel's giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Cal 38, SMU 35. Do you realize what's happening here? If you're a group of 5 football fan, James Madison, for instance, and Bob Chesney might be the next head coach at UCLA, he might be the next head coach at Penn State. One of those things feels really likely to me. So, SMU just had to go on the road as a favorite of almost 2 touchdowns by the time the line closed, according to our friends at FanDuel, and they just had to beat Cal. And if they had done that, because Miami beat Pitt 38-7, looked like a playoff team, SMU would have been back in the ACC Championship game. Do you know what happened instead? The most insane fourth quarter in which 35 points were scored fueled the Chaos Conference to produce one of its wildest games of the year. And Jaren Kiave Sangapolo-Tele went for 330 yards and 4 touchdowns. And Cal blew a 17-point fourth quarter lead, only to march down the field, score the go-ahead touchdown, and then SMU is marching down the field, getting into field goal range. Penalty. Got to take the last time out to avoid the 10-second runoff. Field goal attempt winds up being from 52 yards, wide right. The Duke Blue Devils are going to play the Virginia Cavaliers in the ACC Championship game. If you can find me one person anywhere, I don't care if it is a bot. Okay, I care if it's a bot account on Twitter. I don't care if it is a guy with 2 followers on Twitter. If he can prove that he is real and somehow document that he predicted, or she, an ACC championship game of Duke and Virginia, I would please like to know what substances you had inhaled prior to making that prediction, and can I get some? Because apparently it gives you wisdom and foresight. So Miami is ranked 12th, and they just went to number 22 Pitt and smacked them around the yard, 38-7. Notre Dame beat Pitt on the road 37-15. So the margin of victory is greater for the Canes. Their losses are to a couple of unranked 8-win teams. They beat Notre Dame in the head-to-head. Miami should be ranked ahead of Notre Dame. If you don't want to put either one in the playoff, I'm fine with that. I will have the most serious objection that I have ever had to any outcome in college football if Miami is left out of the playoff. That will be a bad day for the sport. But so Cal, with interim head coach Nick Rolovich, I don't know if he'll be the next head coach. Maybe he will. Offense looked good since Justin Wilcox went away. Virginia and Duke are going to play in the ACC Championship. The Virginia Cavaliers, Tony Elliott will probably be the ACC Coach of the Year. I think Jake Dickert should be the co-coach of the year, but it'll probably be Tony Elliott and Jake Dickert at Wake Forest will finish second. The Cavaliers could beat Duke and go to the college football playoff, and they would probably be the 11 seed and the Group of 5 champion, which will probably be the winner of North Texas and Tulane on Friday, will probably be the 12 seed. But do you realize that if Duke beats Virginia, and the Cavaliers won their first meeting in Durham by 17 points, if Duke gets revenge, there's a world where the Group of 5 puts 2 teams into the playoff. Because the verbiage, and again, I want to go back to this. I've taken some flack from Big 12 fans before that don't care for my stance of I wouldn't have any automatic bids. You gotta have an automatic bid. They're begging to keep us out. Automatic bids, unless BYU wins the Big 12 championship against Texas Tech in a rematch, automatic bids are likely to be the reason that BYU doesn't make the playoff. Because the verbiage is as follows. The 5 highest ranked conference champions. Duke has 5 losses. They will not be ranked, nor should they be. So then you will wind up with the champion of the American guaranteed. Like that is a 100% lock to be a play-in game for either North Texas or Tulane, neither of whom have their head coach for 2026. So then you would go, oh, if Duke wins, who are we going to rank? And the answer is probably James Madison and Bob Chesney. Also not likely to hold his current position when the 2026 season kicks off next August. So the Chaos Conference, as I dubbed it a while ago, has delivered because a 5-loss team. Let me give you Duke's schedule. And by the way, I liked Duke before the year. I thought they'd be a 9-win team. They're not. Their defense isn't good enough yet. They beat Elon. They lost to Illinois by 26. They lost at Tulane in the Darian Mensah Bowl. They beat NC State. They won at Syracuse. They won at Cal. They lost to Georgia Tech by 9. They won at Clemson in a crazy game. They lost to UConn and now Colorado State head coach Jim Mora. They lost to Virginia by 17 at home. They beat North Carolina. They beat Wake Forest. And now they play Virginia for... I don't know how that team will get ranked. You've got a loss to UConn mixed in there. UConn won 9 games this year. Good for them. I can't see it. So it would be James Madison, or let me just throw it out there, guys. Let me just give you a possibility. Could the Mountain West champion wind up ranked? Does that seem totally crazy? I don't think that it does. I'm going to re-examine this tomorrow once we've got all the results. But this is why automatic bids should not exist. I've never liked them. I never will. This is why. 8-5 Duke isn't going to be ranked, right? Not in the ACC. I can't see that. But I think the Mountain West Championship games between San Diego State and New Mexico, one of those teams could be in the playoff. Yeah, Yeah, well, you guys didn't want the playoff expanded. This is what you wanted. So, ACC madness. Unbelievably real and very, very fun. Virginia and Duke. Academic powers squaring off with playoff implications on the line. I cannot believe the world that we're living in. But I love it, and I'm happy to talk about it. Appreciate everyone listening. I will see you next time, and until then, hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.